I live a frugal lifestyle, so obviously I eat the same thing every single day. I live a frugal lifestyle, so obviously I wear the same shirt day after day after day. I live a frugal lifestyle, so I never buy books. I only go to the library. Okay, this may be a few of the misconceptions that a lot of us have of frugal living and intentional living. And while some people are this extreme, there is a huge difference between depriving yourself of all of the joys of life and being frugal and intentional. I have been a minimalist over the past several years, and while my husband has slowly incorporated some of the basic ideas of minimalism as well, we are a family that does our best to be intentional with the things that we bring in, and have spent a lot of time trying to best understand what are the things in our life that enrich our daily experience. And besides that, what are all those other things that we've been told for years that we had to have in order to be adults, when in reality, they were doing nothing but taking up our time and our freedom. So today we're gonna talk about all the ways that my family lives a more frugal and intentional life without missing out on any of the joys of life, and how very much you can too. So let's start at the very beginning. When I was growing up, I lived very much in a family that didn't have anything for extras. First 5 years of my life, I lived in a trailer, and while I had amazingly hardworking parents and grandparents who always made sure that we went to bed with a full belly, we didn't have any room for extras. And watching my dad and mom both work extremely hard, and my mom working as a secretary, putting my dad through school so that he could be a physical therapist, all while my sister and I are growing up, showed me the power of hard work and the ingenuity that humans can have with very little. These basic principles of life that were shown to me, not only spoken, have stuck with me throughout my entire life. But in my early teens and 20s, I very much forgot this idea. And through those dark days, though we had a lot of fun, I will say there are so many opportunities where I wish someone had taught me again about being intentional. There were so many purchases that I wasted money that I really didn't have. And there were so many times when I thought that I really wanted and needed to buy things like expensive purses and a nice car in order to feel successful, in order to feel like I was growing up. But when I finally got introduced to minimalism, the light finally went off. My daughter had been born, and all of these things had been gathered in that I thought I had to have in order to be a good mom. And she had every toy that you could possibly buy and even more. And while I thought this was what I was supposed to be doing, I felt very much like I was drowning. And I felt very depressed and sad in my home. And so I never wanted to be home, and we very rarely were. That being said, I felt like a bad mom, even though my daughter had everything that I thought a good mom would buy her daughter. So that being said, when I finally turned on the TV, Providence or fate, whatever you want to call it, finally turned on, and the minimalist documentary popped up. I knew absolutely nothing about minimalism and had never heard the term or knew anything about it. And yet when I watched these two men walk through their life of changing from really feeling like they had to be successful, you had to make a lot of money, you had to have a lot of things, where they finally came to the realization that with less, they could actually live a much bigger and better life. That it wasn't through status that they had the life they wanted, but it was curating a life only full of things that they really enjoyed, where they could feel the most wealthy. So now let's talk about how we can maximize our life through being more frugal and intentional. The first thing is that we need to change our mindset, like the minimalist did, towards what is wealth to us. Does being wealthy mean that you have to have a large home, you have to have the new car and all the new gadgets? Or could wealth mean something different? Could wealth really mean freedom? Because money is something that often we don't like to talk about, but it's also something that we all need. And we suffer when we don't have enough of it, or when we spend it unwisely. But money can also be a very beautiful thing as well when we learn how to use it to best enrich our lives. And so now money really to me means freedom. Freedom to be able to do what I want to do. If I had enough money, I could change my career. I could go to places I've never been before, and I could educate myself and have experiences that I had never thought possible. When we change and shift our idea of money and think about money for its beautiful aspect to enrich our lives, we see that living an intentional life doesn't mean depriving ourselves of anything, but really it just means that we're going to be able to have a lot more of the things that we all want to talk about at the end of our lives. I think a lot of us are very well aware that there are tons and tons of millionaires that are extremely unhappy. And while it seems like, how is that even possible? It's because they never learned to be intentional with their money. So let me give you an example. Talking about minimalism and money and being more frugal with my family has made some huge impacts in the way that I have an outlook on life. We are looking for a new home, and we have been over the past 6 or 7 months because we want to live in a different school district. We want to live in the same school district as my husband works. And while all of this is happening, what we have noticed is that there are homes that we could easily afford without even selling this home. And then there are the homes that are the stretch, the ones where we would sell this home and still have a much higher mortgage, and that our month to month would be a lot higher. And while those homes are very enticing and is what society tells us should be the next step, we have questioned that and really come up with the thought that when we do find the right house, what we have decided is that it is not going to make us compromise. It's going to be a home where we feel comfortable and we feel safe, but it doesn't need to compromise any of the other things that really enrich and embolden our lives. Things that you can start changing a little bit at a time are things like changing over from using paper towels to using rags. Things like changing over to reusable batteries instead of the one-use batteries. There are tons of things out there now that we are so privileged to have in our society that often might have an upfront cost, but will last a lot longer and will allow you to then start saving towards what your big goals are. If this video is encouraging to you and you're learning something, then please join this community and subscribe. But also, if you are living a minimalist life here with us, then throw a heart emoji down below. We often borrow things in our family, and I will go over to my mom's house and borrow her crock pot instead of buying my own. It's deciding what are the things that I really enjoy every day, and I'm bringing those in, but those things that you only use every once in a while, why do we really need to go and have that in our home all of the time? One of our favorite proverbs is now, we got a tool for that. Because when we went to Cuba several years ago, it was extremely eye-opening the absolute poverty that was in Cuba. And yet that wasn't the biggest takeaway. From the ingenuity to the creativity to the just plain genius of the people that lived in Cuba and how they could take things that were just what I would call beyond repair and fix them and make them work all over again. It's amazing that when you have the spirit of I can do anything, that you really can as people, that we can make things work and we can fix a lot more than we think we can. In our home, yes, often I will be fixing my own pants, or I will just put in a new sole in my favorite pair of shoes instead of buying new. But each of these small changes that you can do and use in your home have an amazing impact on your budget and the environment. When you do need to buy things, try making a list. There is a small notebook that I always keep in my bag that I will write down items that I see out when I am shopping that I want to think about for a little while, and I'll leave them on my list, and often I'll end up just forgetting them and crossing them off. I also do this with my daughter. Often I will take pictures of her while she's at the store, and it's just a great way for me to say, yes, I acknowledge you and I hear you. And so she can more easily let go of these things and put them back on the shelf because she has been seen and heard. So changing your mindset with money is not an easy thing, and it's something that I still struggle with today. But creating an intentional list of things that you won't compromise, whether it's the quality of the item or how long have you done the research into finding something you really want, Is it something that you've already been living without, so maybe you can just continue? Or is it gonna compromise some of your basic principles of your life, like experiences or travel? If you were to buy this item, would one of those have to go? So moving forward, if you are searching for more minimalist content, then please click on one of these videos right here, and I wish you guys all the best.